All right, so today you are going to review some material that you should have learned last year. So you're going to have some terms with their definition. Make sure you fill them in, and then any extra thing that I say or write down, you need to make sure that you're writing down on your notes, all right? So let's get started. So I know many of you haven't even listened to what I said. You just start writing things down that you see on the screen. Why don't you do that? Why don't you fill in those three? All right, press pause, and then press play when you're done, and then listen to what I have to say. All right, so the first term that we're going to talk about and that you see up here is the term midpoint. All right, so mid means middle, all right, directly in the middle, and it's a point that's in the middle. So what that does is if you know that M is a midpoint, if you know that this is a midpoint, you know that this segment and this segment are equal to each other. So we can say AM is congruent to MB. Hold on one second. Miss Sanders, you rock. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. See, I don't look at it.
All right. So if another thing we were to say, if AM is 5 feet, what is MB? Oh, MB is also going to be 5 feet because the midpoint makes each side of it equal. All right, segment bisector. Segment bisector is very similar to midpoint, but it's a little different because a segment now is doing the bisecting, or what I like to say is cut. You're cutting in half. All right, so a segment bisector is a line or a segment or a ray that intersects another segment at a midpoint. So here, M will have to be the midpoint if DE is a segment bisector. So I like to think about segment bisectors as knives. So if DE is our segment bisector, it's going to cut and slice AB into two congruent parts. So what that means is AM is congruent to MB. And the reason we know that is because DE is your knife. It's your segment bisector. It's cutting your segment AD or AB in half. All right, continuing with the word bisector now. Angle bisector. So bisector means to cut into two. So an angle bisector is an angle that's cut into two equal or congruent angles. So if you look up here, BD is an angle bisector of ABC. So that means DB or BD, this thing, is doing the cutting. It's going to cut your angle into two congruent angles. And we show congruent angles with those little arcs. They're like half circles, little arcs. Same thing with segments. When segments are congruent, we use these little tick marks, little slashes. But angles, to show that they're congruent, we use little arcs. So because BD is an angle bisector, we can say angle 1 is congruent to angle 2. Their measures are equal. So if angle 1 is 40, angle 2 is 40 as well. All right. Now, before we keep going, if I'm going too fast, pause and rewind. Pause, rewind as many times as you can, okay? So here we go. Here are the last two. I don't really have any words here, so let's get started with these. All right, so now we're going to be talking about specific properties of angles. So the first is adjacent angles. So adjacent means next to. So if you're next to two angles that are right next to each other, they share a common side. So angle 1 and angle 2 are adjacent angles because they share this ray right here. 1 and 2 share that ray. All right? So adjacent means next to. Now, the next thing we're going to talk about is something called angle addition. Angle addition means that if we were to take two angles and add them up, they would add up to equal a whole entire angle. All right? So what I mean by that is this. All right? If we were to take angle RQS, this angle right here, and add it with SQP, angle SQP, sorry, P, all right? So this angle plus the blue angle should add up and equal the big angle. That's called angle addition. You could take two mini angles and add them up and they'll equal this big one. So the little green angle plus the little blue angle will add up to equal angle RQP. And that's called angle addition. Anytime you add two angles that are adjacent or next to each other, they'll add up to equal a larger angle. So flip over. Now, the last term that we're going to talk about before we get started is linear pair. Linear pair means two angles that are adjacent next to each other, but they sum or add up to equal 180 degrees. And the reason they do that is look over here in our diagram. All right, we have two angles. We got angle 1, and angle 2 that are adjacent. They're next to each other. They share this side right here. But the most important thing is that those other two sides form a line. They form this line down here that I keep, I'm going to do this in purple, this line. And the reason that we like or study linear pairs is because lines add up, their measure will always add up to 180 degrees. They'll always add up to 180 degrees. So anytime two angles are next to each other and their other two sides that do not touch, they form a line, they always add up to 180 degrees. That is a very, very, very special property that we're going to see often and often and often. So it's going to be important that we can pick out linear pairs. All right. So let's take some problems and let's do some examples down here. So, all right. So here we go. It says, identify the types and segments and of angles of the problem below. Find the missing information. So here we go. I tell you different angle measures, so for different things. So starting with number 1. All right, so number 1, it says identify the types of segments or angles in the problem below and then find the missing information. So if I look at these two angles, let's call this angle 1 and angle 2. These two angles are adjacent. They're not a linear pair. They're just adjacent angles. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read what they say up here. So it says angle ABD is 37. So I'm actually going to put a 37 in there. And then angle ABC is 84. Now ABC is the entire angle, and that's 84. It's asking what's the measure of angle DBC. DBC is this angle right here. What is this angle? So if they give us this as 37, don't tell us this. And this entire thing is 84. How do we find this? Well, what we're going to do is we're going to say, well, the total is 84 minus 37, and we're going to get 48. No, that's not right. 47, sorry, 47. So the name is adjacent. Not anything more special than adjacent, and this angle is 47 degrees. So we're just using angle addition postulate. The two little baby angles, this guy and this guy, should add up to equal 84 degrees. Now, number 2, it says that the measure of angle 1 is 118. So 118. And the measure of angle 2, it says find the measure of angle 2. Well, they only give us this, so this is 118 degrees. Well, what you have to do is you have to look and say, hey, 1 and 2 are adjacent. They form this line, which means that this is a linear pair. And linear pairs add up to equal 180 degrees. So what you're going to do is you're going to go 180 minus 118, and that's going to find you angle 2. And it's going to equal 62 degrees. 62 degrees. And that's using the definition of a linear pair. Those two angles are adjacent, they form a line, and they add up to 180 degrees. Number 3. So it says M is the midpoint. So if M is the midpoint splits the two sides that it's splitting. So AM and MB are equal to each other. So this is, I guess you would call it midpoint. So it's midpoint. So the measure, see this little m? That means measure of segment MB must be 4. That must be 4, and the measure of AB must be 4 as well. All right, cool. Now, let's do some more challenging problems. So it says ON is an angle bisector of angle COX. So ON, this is your bisector, which is your knife. So it's going to split your angle into 2 equal parts. These two are equal. Now notice, I haven't even read the problem. I know these two angles are equal to each other. So now, what I'm going to do, right, is I'm going to continue. It says angle CON is 67 degrees. All right, is 67 degrees. What is the measure of angle XON? Now, XON is this. I don't know what this angle is. But since they're equal, this must equal 67 degrees because, all right, 67, because it's an angle bisector. So angle bisector. So CON is 67, NOX is 67. So what is the measure of COX? Now COX is the entire big thing. Well, if we add up 67, that's 134 degrees. And you get that by 67 plus 67. And that's those two. All right, flip it over. Now, again, if I'm going too quick or you need to rehear it, rewind it and go back over it. So here we go. It says, number 5. It says, if the measure of angle 1 is 97 and angle 2 is 53, find the measure of the unmarked angle. So I like to fill this in. So 97 is here. This is 53. Now, looking at it, you want to find the unmarked angle. I'm going to mark it with a dot here. I want to find that angle in purple. How am I going to find that? Well, looking at this diagram, we have 3 angles, 1, 2, and then the unknown one, that are adjacent, right next to each other, and they form a line. Now, the one nice thing about forming a line is that lines add up to 180 degrees. So what we can do is we can say, hey, these 3 should add up to 180. So we go 180 minus 97 minus 53, and that total is going to be our missing angle. So 180 minus 97 is 83. 83 minus 53 is 30 degrees. So that's your missing angle, is 30 degrees here. All right. Number 6, DG bisects angle MDP. So this DG, this is your knife. This thing's cutting in half. Now, it says find GDP. GDP is this little half angle here. Now, angle bisector means that this angle is split into 2 congruent parts. These 2 are congruent to each other. Now, notice it gave like this little, see this arc here? It says this big, the entire thing is 88 degrees. So if the entire angle is 88 and DG is an angle bisector, that means that this angle is 44 and this angle is 44 degrees. So the angle that we're looking for, angle, ooh, gotta love this computer, GDP equals 44 degrees. All right. All right. So, why don't we do this? Why don't you pause this and do 7, 8, and 9, and you can check your answers when you replay it. All right. So let's check our answers now. So it says angle 1 is 83. So that's 83. What we can do is we can find the other angles, 3, 4, 5, whatever, by using linear pairs. So 1 and 4 are linear pairs, which means that this has to be 97 degrees because these 2 add up to 180. And then that means that 4 and 2 are a linear pair, which means this is 83. And then lastly, 2 and 3 are a linear pair, so this has got to be 97. And you also could have said, hey, 83, this angle that we originally started with, is vertical to this angle. So those must be congruent, but you still also have to use a linear pair to find your other one. So angle 2 is 83, angle 3 and angle 4 are 97. All right, number 8. So it says AB is an angle bisector of angle CDA. So this is your knife, which means that this angle and this angle are congruent. So we're going to start off 3x plus 5 equals 5x minus 11. So the first thing we've got to do is solve for x. So I'm going to subtract 3x. Always move your smaller variable. So I get 5 equals 2x minus 11. I'm going to add 11. So I get 16 equals 2x and divide by 2 and x equals 8. So if x equals 8, now we can start having some fun. So CAB, we're going to put 8 in there. 3 times 8 is 24, plus 5 is 29 degrees. And if this is 29, this must be 29 also because they're congruent, but we can test it. BAD, so 5 times 8 is 40. 40 minus 11 is 29. And then lastly, CAD is the entire big monster angle. And you get that by adding 29 and 29 and getting 58 degrees. 58. All right, number 9. Here we go. Number 9. So it says, find x in both angle measures if MAT is 120. Now notice here, it does not say anything about angle bisectors. So we cannot assume AH is an angle bisector and 5x minus 6 and 2x are equal. We cannot assume that. All we know is that this MAT is 120. So MAT, this entire angle is 120 degrees. So if I look, I don't know angle bisector, but I do know what these two angles are inside, the mini angles. These two mini angles should add up to equal 120, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go 5x minus 6 plus 2x equals 120. All right, sorry, 120. So I'm going to combine like terms. 5x and 2x is 7x minus 6 equals 120. I'm going to add 6, and I get 7x equals 126. Divide by 7, and I'm going to get x equals, what is it, 7, 5, 18. So you get 18. X equals 18. So once x equals 18, to find these remaining angles, MAH, so this 5x minus 6 one, we're going to go 5 times 18 minus 6. So 5 times 18, 90 minus 6 is 84. So this is going to be 84 degrees, so 84. And then HAT, so 2 times 18 is 36. And you know you've done it right when 84 plus 36 equals 120. All right. No brain break. Let's do one more of these and you should be good, okay? Let's do number 10. Sorry for the fact that we haven't done many of the midpoint ones. So midpoint means that this side is congruent to this side. So M is your midpoint. So it says AM is 2 times x minus 4. I like just distributing that already and getting 2x plus 8. And MB is 6 times x minus 2, so that's 6x plus 12. Find the measure of the x and the segments and all that good stuff. So AM is 2x plus 8, and this is 6x plus 12. So what we're going to do is we're just going to set these two equal to each other. 2x plus 8 equals 6x plus 12. So combining like terms, you should end up getting 4x by moving that 2x over. Subtracting 12, you get negative 4 over here, and you're going to get x equals negative 1. So x equals negative 1. So now to find AM, MB, and AB, we just substitute that back in. Now the one nice thing is since these two sides are congruent, we really only have to plug it into one side and we get the other. So let's find AM first. So we're going to go 2 times negative 1 is negative 2. Negative 2 plus 8 is 6, which means MB must be 6. So AB, your entire measure, is going to be 12. 6 plus 6 is 12. All right. Yeah, these other two, so these, number 11, this angle and this angle is a linear pair. So this plus this should add up to equal 180. So you're just going to add these all up and set them equal to 180. The big trick is this guy right here. What I would suggest is distributing the 5 in. All right, so you're going to get 5x plus 15 plus 5. And then to get this entire angle, we're going to combine like terms here. So you get 5x plus 20. So that's the left. So it's really 5x plus 20 plus, and then x plus 10. X plus 10 equals 180. So you combine like terms. 5x and x is 6x. 20 and 10 is 30 equals 180. Equals 180. So you solve, you'll subtract 30, divide by 6, and you'll get x equals, what is that? What's 150 divided by 6? Gotta get my calculator out. 150 divided by 6, and you get 25. 25. All right. So what you're going to do is you're going to go up and get the homework from the sub. Make sure that you're doing your problems, and I'll be back and we can check the answers together. All right. Thank you.